Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chicagoland Speedway. Mark Murphy here in the P1 broadcasting booth. I've got Ryan Eric King along with me for 100 laps of NASR Votive Racing League action tonight in the IR18 from Chicagoland. Ryan, always great to have you along in the booth, affectionately known as the Wreck, current IndyCar driver in the iRacing IndyCar series, as well as Jalopnik.com reporter. And Ryan, tell us what you think and what you know about Chicagoland and what you expect tonight.
Oh, it is. I love Chicagoland. If you are a fan of IndyCar racing, and if you've been a fan for a while, you know the finishes the IRL used to have here. Still the closest finish in IndyCar history was here in Chicagoland.
Yes, it was. I was there that day, by the way. Ball State student for much of this track's existence, and so for IndyCar's tenure during its existence. And so I came to every race here while I was in college, 2001 through 2005. Saw some great races. It is a beautiful facility. It's a shame it's currently disused. It is 1.52 miles as measured by the IndyCar series, 1.52 miles. NASCAR measures it at 1.5 even. It is a virtual twin to Kansas, except as you can see from the aerial shot there are no straightaways here, in a nod to the old Langhorne Speedway in Pennsylvania. This speedway is circled. There are no straights. The backstretch is slightly curved. It was opened in 2001 as a partnership between NASCAR and International Speedway Corporation, which is NASCAR's track division, now owned by NASCAR, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Originally, there was one Cup date and one IndyCar date, and you had to buy a ticket to both to get into either one. And so the stands here for the first 5 or 6 years for both events were packed. It was a rival track to the long-forgotten, and Ryan, you may remember this one, the Chicago Motor Speedway in Cicero.
Yes, where Chicago Motor Speedway is been relegated to the dustbin of history and, the film Speed.
It lives on in celluloid. Much of the movie Driven was filmed at the Chicago Motor Speedway. Owned by Chip Ganassi, it lasted a grand total of 3 years. A mile paperclip oval, that one built as a twin to a horse racing facility. The horse track was on one side of the grandstand, and the IndyCar track was on the other, but ran out of money. I went to that one too, and I got to tell you, the grandstands were of such a construction that you could feel them sway back and forth in the stiff breeze. And in Chicago, there is a stiff breeze most of the time. This track, though, is not a flat paperclip oval. It is 18 degrees of banking in the corners, 11 degrees on the front, 5 degrees in the back. The stock car track record here, held by Joey Logano, he set a lap of 189.414 miles an hour in 2013. The IndyCar qualifying record is held by Richie Hearn, our good friend, Lionheart Series, Elite Racing League, and ISRA competitor Richie Hearn, one and the same. In 2003, he grabbed the pole for the IndyCar race, 223.159 miles an hour. But the absolute track record is held by neither. Ryan, you care to take a guess?
Oh, if I'd say absolute track record, I wanna lean towards the Ganassi driver. Does Dario have the record here?
It is not a driver that has ever driven for Chip Ganassi or Team Penske. Never driven for either one. Probably should have, but never has.
Ooh, are you talking a Panther Racing driver?
Never drove for Panther Racing.
Ray Hall.
The absolute track record was set in 2002 by Red Bull Cheever Racing's Buddy Rice in one of those infinity hand grenades. In the draft, wow. 224.067. And I got to tell you, that is absolutely hauling the mail when it comes to a 1.5 mile oval. By the way, Tony Stewart holds the record for the most wins at this speedway with 3. In terms of competition for the NASR Votive IndyCar Series, this is round 2. Last week at Auto Club, your winner was Josh Ward. He also has the points lead, 43 points. Akesh Rajesh finished second. He's on 35 points. Mason Mitchum third. Gary Lovren fourth. And Iker Peguero rounded out the top 5 from California. We'll do 100 laps tonight. And then next week, probably my favorite, we're going to call it 1A on the schedule. We'll head to Texas for 100 laps there. All of the races 100 laps. 2 weeks' time, we'll be at Pocono, Michigan on October the 9th, Las Vegas October the 16th. And a late birthday present for me, we're going to round out the season at the Oval at Indianapolis, half distance, 100 laps, 250 miles to decide the Votive IndyCar Series Championship. The point system here is pretty simple. You get 40 for winning a race, 35 for second. You go 1 point down for every position after that. The minimum is 1.430. It's 2 points for pole, 2 points for leading the most laps, and you do get 1 point for leading a lap. All of these races feature 75% fuel, and so here we would anticipate that to be about 35 to 40 laps. 3 sets of tires in the pits, and they get 1 fast repair. And Ryan, as we get ready to qualify here at Chicagoland, I must say the story for me is going to be twofold, and the second one kind of feeds into the first. It's going to be the regulars against the irregulars, right? So Craig Forsyth, Julian Altena, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Will Stearns, Nick Wheeler, Hugo Galez, guys with a ton of experience in this car are in the field today, and there are some names that do not have a lot of experience. And the reason that's important is we are going to see a what today, Mr. Ryan Eric King?
Oh, we tend to see pack racing here in Chicago, and that means accidents, large ones. And honestly, you're going to want to protect yourself, stay out of situations that put yourself in danger. You have a spare, you have a fast repair, but save it for your life, because you don't know if that one wreck is going to be your only wreck of the day.
Yeah, and that's very true. And we'll go ahead and put it. We'll go ahead and put the camera on Craig Forsyth as the guys start. The guys start their qualification attempts. This is Craig Forsyth in the number 27 Forsyth livery car. That's actually, isn't that the number that Jacques Villeneuve won in that car? Won within that car at Indianapolis?
Yes.
I know that Craig tends to usually run the 99, but if I'm thinking correctly, the Villeneuve car is the number 27 in the Speedway Museum, and that's a fun story about the I call them the three sisters, but if you want, we can get into that while we're watching Craig qualify.
Yeah, we can get into it.
Okay, so everybody knows the Indy split. Jacques Villeneuve, for a long time, was called the winner of the last real Indianapolis 500 by Ryan's colleague and my good friend and former IndyCar rider, and we call him former because he's now deceased. But the last real Indy 500 winner by Robin Miller was often termed to be Jacques Villeneuve. The number 27 Forsyth Green Machine is in the museum. However, it has two sister cars in the museum, and both of its sisters are also significant. So the 1996 Indy 500 track record holder, which also holds, by the way, the track record at Phoenix, and the last win for a turbocharged IRL car is the car of Arie Luyendyk. That was the backup car for Jacques Villeneuve in 1994 for his rookie assault and came from Forsyth Green Racing. The other sister car to that car that is significant is Buddy Lazier's 1996 Indy winner, which was the backup for Villeneuve in 1995. Now, I can verify that all cars do have sequential chassis numbers and that they all indeed at one point belong to Forsyth Green Racing, and I know that because I've been down to the basement to see them. But what's even more interesting about all that, is that just in the political environment that Forsyth would sell the cars that originally went on to become two of the most famous Indy Racing League cars, given Mr. Forsyth's obvious objections to the Indy Racing League, some would find quite poetic. But those cars are in the Speedway Museum. They all have sequential chassis numbers, and you can go and see them when the museum reopens, in 2026?
Yes, it should be open for the month of May in 2026.
They are beautiful machines, by the way, and that was a great experience. Before it closed, we got to take the basement tour. My then 7-year-old son climbed all over and around and under the track record car, which was in the basement at the time. And he kept asking, Daddy, why is it hollow underneath? Because back then, there weren't so many rules on the tunnels underneath the car. And if you take a look at one of the take a look at one of those 1995 spec Reynards, 94, 95 spec Reynards, the back half of the side pods are basically hollow. There's nothing there. It's just airspace, a side skirt that seals up to the ground more or less, and a diffuser at the back to pull the air out and stick them to the ground. And that's about it behind the radiators in those cars. And so pretty cool to see if you ever get a chance to see one up close. The other thing that I learned about those cars, and this came from Ari's chief mechanic, and the thread still exists over at trackforum.com, is that there is basically no difference between a 94 and a 95 Reynard. And then the 96 Reynard just featured safety improvements around the cockpit. The chassis itself remained the same. And so we tend to think about 94, 95, 96 different cars, but that actually referred to the year the tub was built, not necessarily the equipment on the automobile.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, so Tim Order had an amazing thread over at Track Forum. You should definitely head over there and read that at some point. But we don't have time to do that now, Ryan, because we are going to go racing here at Chicagoland. Speaking of racing at Chicagoland, Josh Ward, last week's winner, is going to grab the pole, 221.113 miles an hour. He's going to have Craig Forsyth in the number 27 40 Racewear Special at 220.988. Second row, Akesh Rajesh and Julian Altina. The third row, Shane Coker and Mark Miller. Row 4, starting 7, Stephen Bruner, and 8th, Dan Adams. Number 9, Armands Juan Petrovich, and starting 10th, and a great qualifying run for him, is Gary Lovern. 11th, Rob Nickel. 12th, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, probably a disappointment for Luis. LGN, normally a pretty good qualifier. Scott Schrader will roll 13th, Baron Glover 14th, John Napier 15th, Nick Wheeler 16th, Dylan Braden 17th, and Mason Mitchum 18th, Josh Cruz 19th, and Turner Johnson will round out your top 20. 21st is Will Stearns. Not taking time are the cars of Greg Robinson and James Waring as we head off for 150 miles of action here at Chicagoland.
Oh, yeah, 150 miles is either going to go very quick for us, or we're going to be spending a lot of time behind the pace car now.
You know, something else we didn't talk about, and probably worth a mention, is that, you know, this is at its heart a stock car game turned into a simulation. Stock cars max in a next-gen car is maybe 202, 203 in the draft. We're going to be going 225 to 230 when we get a run in the draft here. And net code is always an issue when we come here, isn't it?
Yeah, especially with the curve back straight, because if you're side by side with someone, you kind of have to hold faith that they're going to run along the wall and not in a straight line towards turn 3.
Yeah, and that's very true. Pace car is going to duck on off. We see the field coming toward Barney, the flagman. Green flag is out. The race is on. Josh Ward is going to jump into the lead from Craig Forsyth. Akesh Rajesh is going to hold second now over Craig. Down to the inside, Julian Altina slides in fourth, and Mark Miller fifth.
Okay, we make it through 1 and 2 clean.
We do indeed. Julian Altina already climbing to the high side of his buddy Craig Forsyth, and he's going to challenge Akesh Rajesh for second here. We've made it through 1 lap.
And we have a move for the lead.
It's going to be Akesh Rajesh going to the lead over Josh Ward. We saw that last week. Rajesh not afraid to charge. Julian Altina tests the curvature there on the backstretch. He got awfully close, and I don't know if he didn't hit it.
Oh, we have a collision in the back.
All right, man. Caution is out. Caution is out.
Oh, we got one car upside down. That's Dan Adams, and I believe he's got Turner Johnson right there with him. We're going to have to check that out, see exactly what befell the 88 of Dan Adams and the 91 of Turner Johnson. That is a nasty-looking accident, but we are under caution here at Chicagoland, and they're right in front. They're right in front of LGN here, coming through turns number 3 and 4. It's LGN at the top. That is Dan Adams on the well, it's Dan Adams on the top, LGN on the bottom. Now we're going down the back straight, so that was 1 and 2, my fault. They do look very similar on TV, don't they? Turn 3 we go, and Dan Adams just kind of got up and clipped the fence, came back down, nowhere to go for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, and we're going to see Turner Johnson just come through here right into the side, nowhere to go, and up end over tea kettle he goes right onto the roof, and that's going to be an early fast repair for both Dan Adams and Turner Johnson. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez is also going to be on pit road. I would wager that LGN is going to be repairing. He did not take his fast repair, though. And so under caution, working lap 4 of 100. Was that over or under your expectations, Ryan?
Honestly, slightly better than expectations. I kind of expected there to be a pile up on the exit 4 in the first lap, 10 and a half. Tires would run up, push up to towards the wall, and then hit it, come back, and take out
Yeah, you are super quiet, by the way, Ryan, and I don't know if you'd step away from the microphone or it's a little bit further. There you go.
But yeah, I expected something to happen on the first lap where, with cold tires, you push up on the exit, a turn 4, you hit the wall, and then you rebound back in front of other cars, and we just saw that just a lap later.
Yeah, and tires aren't really an issue here once they get up to temperature. You could probably do this whole 100 laps on one set. It might get a little bit loose off of 2 late in the run in traffic, but other than that, I wouldn't expect tires to be a thing here at all. Other than when they're cold, of course, right?
Yeah, other than when they're cold, like as you said with late in runs, and like this is one of the few places where I feel more comfortable late in runs in traffic because it feels like you do more with the car.
Yeah, and so. That's for sure. I mean, that's probably going to be the only time that you're going to see the pack break up. The interesting thing is, though, for me, that usually happens about lap 35 or so. Well, that's also the fuel run in this race because they're on 75% fuel. I was actually kind of surprised to not see anybody in the back other than Schrader Brandon and Hugo Gallas, and that's a sharp tack in that 57 machine. Those 3 guys came in and topped up. I was surprised we didn't see more do that. Obviously, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez has come to pit lane to repair his damage, as have Dan Adams and Turner Johnson. Pace car is off.
Green flag, green flag.
And racing is going to resume. Great restart. They have changed the rules here, Ryan.
Well, yeah, I noticed that it was a lot cleaner than last week, thankfully.
Yeah, and that's something that we'd kind of talked about with Shane a little bit. IndyCar restarts a little bit different than stock cars, just simply because they're self-policing. They're self-policing. In other words, in an IndyCar, everybody gets right up next to the outside wall, come to the line. You can't pass before the line to the left, and so there's pretty much not an issue with guys jumping starts other than maybe laying back a little bit because what are you going to do if you get a run? You're going to blow by somebody before the line? That's an instant black flag and a 40-second hold. No reason to take myself out of the race. So people generally behave themselves pretty well. Speaking of behaving themselves pretty well, Julian Altena just ran the fastest lap of the race, 2:17.948. Akesh Rajesh leads it from Josh Ward. Craig Forsyth is third. Julian Altena fourth. And I got to ask, how much fuel do you reckon is being saved by the 27 and 11 up there?
probably, if you do that over the course of a run, you get an extra 3 to 5 laps if you're really good with it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I had mathed out. My experience, mile and a half oval, 100% tanks, you're going to get about 47 laps. That means 75%. I'd expect them to start coming in around lap 35. But I would bet you a shiny new dime that Craig Forsyth and Julian Alcina are probably running Fuel 3 or Fuel 5, and they're running about 3/4 throttle right now. And so, again, just a shiny new dime says that they're going to be able to run much closer to that 40 to 41 or 40, even 42 lap mark, and they're not going to lose any time because they are right up there in that lead draft.
Yeah, and that's the most important part, because if you do that for 2-3 stints, it adds up at the end.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it last week. You can do 11 gallons of fuel here and change tires without penalty. But anything less than that 11 gallons, you're going to start to, if you got less than 11 gallons to take, you can really, really, really help yourself out on the racetrack, because fuel in the pits is time on the racetrack. And so, 75% of 18.5 is, you got to wait on me, I went to Ball State, about 14 gallons. And so, what is it? Average fuel consumption here is what? 0.35 to 0.4 a lap, Ryan?
Yeah, roughly.
All right. If I need 0.4, if I can get 0.4 a lap, and I can stop at lap 80, I can take 8 gallons of fuel. I'm going to save myself about a second and a half on a pit lane, and I guarantee you that's crossed Craig and Julian's mind.
Yeah, because a second and a half, you're out of the tow. Like, you pulled away from the field.
Yeah. And speaking of pulling away from the field, Josh Ward has gone to the lead. Craig Forsyth is now second. Julian Alcina remains third. You've got Akesh Rajesh has fallen back to fourth, and Stephen Bruner is fifth. Gary Lovern sixth. Shane Coker seventh. Mark Miller eighth. Nick Wheeler ninth. And Luis Gonzalez Nunez, after that earlier fracas, has worked his way back up into the top 10. Rob Nickel is 11th. Will Stearns coming from the back. He is now 12th. Armand Juan Petrovich is 13th. Josh Cruz is 14th. Baron Glover 15th. Mason Mitchum 16th. Scott Schroeder 17th. John Napier just pulled off a pass to move himself into 18th position. Dylan Brandon 19th. And the old pro Hugo Gallows will round out your top 20. Greg Robinson 21st. James Waring 22nd. 2 laps down, Dan Adams and Turner Johnson. They were both involved heavily in the first caution of the event. We are going to go through the field in just a little while once things settle out to kind of show all the cars. That is your leader, Josh Ward. That's the Connor Daly United States Air Force machine, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Very good. We'll move back to Craig Forsyth. Craig Forsyth is in the 1995 Forsyth Green Players Livery Machine, sponsored by 4D Racewear. His longtime friend Jim Herrick putting his company on the side of that car. I do have a pair of their shoes, by the way. Absolutely wonderful piece of kit those things are. Third, Julian Alcina. He's in the number 11. That's a blue and black with white trim car. The VOR, Velocity Online Racing Series, on the side of that machine. Stephen Bruner is going to run fourth. He is this looks like a lime green iRacing car, number 20 for Stephen Bruner. And then Akesh Rajesh, we kind of talked to him a little bit about that last week in the interview room. He has a proprietary deal, and that thing is some kind of slick looking hot rod, isn't it?
Yeah, it is something you would see rolling down the highway, doing something. Well, I'm not saying doing something illegal, but
I mean, it does have gold hubcaps, right?
That is true.
I mean, I'm all in favor of chrome hubcaps. My personal car, as Ryan very well knows, has chrome white wheels. Gold might be a little bit too ostentatious. Maybe we'll save that for Jesper. He likes the bling a little bit more than I do. Go one behind him, and you'll find the number 29 of Gary Lovern. Gary is in the number 29. That is a VOR machine. Looks just like Julian's, just red instead of blue. Series proprietor Shane Coker is going to be next. He's in the number 32. That is a lime green machine, P1 Broadcasting on the side. And we certainly do thank Shane for his support in the number 32 as he looks to the outside of Gary Lovern. He's going to go for 6th spot. In 8th, that's a veteran of many a top split. That's Nick Wheeler in the purple and orange number 77. Look who's come to 9th. It's our old friend Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Ryan.
Yeah, LGN in the P1 liveried machine.
That's number 14 for LGN. Of course, a huge AJ Foyt fan, if you don't know him. Right behind him, Mark Milner. He's got Bass Pro Shops on the side of the number 06. And then another veteran of the IndyCar Wars. That's Will Stearns in the number 306. Will, such a great competitor and a good friend to all of us. He's dropped a little bit of iRating recently, so I haven't seen him around. The big shows, but good for Will for coming out here. He's given a good account for himself. He started last today.
Wow. And he makes his way into the top 10.
Yeah, well, he's working around a lap car right there. That's Turner Johnson in the 91, but he's sniffing on the edge of it. He's got Mark Miller in front of him. He's got LGN kind of parting the seas for him. I think he got a little bit wiggly, but a great run up to the front for Will Stearns. The number 6 of Rob Nickel. That's the Team Scandia Royal Purple machine. Team Scandia, by the way, owns the record for the most number of cars entered in an Indianapolis 500. 1997, I believe they entered 7 cars. Was it?
Yes.
That was the remnants of the Dick Simon team that Andy Evans had purchased, and then he also owned IMSA at the time too, didn't he?
Yes, he did own IMSA at the time, but that was in a very, very low period for IMSA.
Yeah, that was a different variant of the International Motorsports Association than we know today, but he did own it at one point. Of course, there were some other things that led to that, of the less than legal variety, shall we say. There is an abbreviation for IMSA that I will not use on the broadcast. I'm sure that anybody who is a fan of motor racing can figure out why that is. In 13th, we have Josh Cruz. The cruiser started 19th today. He is up to 13th. Good-looking car for him. Mason Mitchum has the number 3 car in the 14th spot. He started 18th, so he's moved up as well in the alternate McLaren-looking car. And then Scott Schrader. Haven't said a word about Scott Schrader in either one of these races that we've broadcast, but Scott running along 15th. He started 13th, keeping his nose clean, out of trouble. He did stop and take some extra fuel on board on that last stop, so good for Scott Schrader. We'll continue our journey through the field just to show you the cars that are running in the NASR Votive IndyCar Series. That's Dylan Brannon in the number 4 orange and teal blue machine, and he is followed by Armand Juan Petrovich in the 96. That is silver and maroon on the side of that Dallara. Armand is having a tough day. He started 9th. He has fallen back to 17th position. Right behind him, you have Baron Glover, and I don't quite know what to say about the colors, other than it looks like a Mountain Dew. It looks like a Dr. Pepper can, maybe, that's really chrome and got some blue on it.
Yeah, I'd make that comparison. It's definitely evocative.
You won't miss Baron Glover on the speedway, ladies and gentlemen. He's 18th. He started 14th again. Nose kept clean, staying out of trouble. John Napier in the 98. He is 19th, purple and blue on the Rogue Energy car. And then our old friend Hugo Gallas, and those are colors that are very familiar to anyone who's run any sort of an IndyCar race ever in the service. Hugo Gallas running along in 20th. He does have the extra fuel on board. He did stop under that caution, and so he's 4 laps to the good on the rest of the field, as are Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Scott Schrader, and Dylan Brannon. Behind him, we've got the Kyle Larson car. That is the obligatory Kyle Larson car. Gary, if you're watching, we've got one for you here. That's Greg Robinson. He started 22nd. He's up to 21st. Good job for Greg Robinson. James Waring is in the 99, is 22nd. That kind of reminds me of the Harding Steinbrenner car.
Yeah, you got the pinstripes. Something you'd expect from a car run by George Steinbrenner the fourth.
Absolutely. The owner of the New York Yankees at one point was an early backer and team owner for Colton Herta. And so Colton...
I should say the son of the owner of the New York Yankees.
Who will probably one day be the owner of the New York Yankees.
Well, I'd say there is definitely going to be a Yankees version of Succession when that time comes.
There will be, and we do see a New York Yankees emblem on the side, and so clearly that is meant to be a throwback to that machine. As a piece of trivia, by the way, Yankee Stadium is built, both the original version and the new one. The facade is entirely Indiana limestone. Did you know that? It's quarried outside of Bedford, Indiana.
Yes, I did know that about the ballpark.
There you go. Dan Adams, he is 2 laps in arrears involved in that earlier crash. Chrome gold, black and white, Green Bay Packers. Well, that's green. Green Bay Packers looking car. And then Turner Johnson is the final machine. He is up amongst the leaders in the top 10. But a tough day for Turner Johnson. He got involved in an earlier accident. He's taking his fast repair. He is 5 laps. 5 laps off the pace. And we are 35 laps into the run now. We're going to head back to Craig Forsyth because not only do we have a 3-way battle for the lead, but we are nearing pit stops.
Yeah, and it is going to be a question of who stops first, but they are 3 wide in the one, and I'm holding my breath.
Well, and that very well could be, if you're Josh Ward, you're up top there. He's led a lot of the early part of this event, and you lead, you burn fuel. Craig and Julian have been sitting kind of behind him, saving gas. I wouldn't be surprised to see Josh Ward come and pit just a couple of laps earlier than Forsyth and Altena, just by virtue of having been out front and racing, and raced harder, longer than the other two.
Well, as you say that, Josh is just calling the radio that he's coming in.
All right, Josh Ward going to come in and let's follow him. He brings it down off the banking. He's going to try to slow it down. He's got to get to 55 miles an hour by those cones. He'll come into the pit lane, and I would wager to say he is going to take all 14 and a half gallons, and he is going to take 4 new stones, and he is going to get the heck out of there. Meanwhile, you've got the 93 car of Baron Glover on pit lane, and we'll go back and follow the leader. That's Craig Forsyth being challenged by Julian Altena. An interested party to all that is Stephen Bruner, and let's go on board Stephen Bruner and see what he sees. Best seat in the house, Stephen Bruner. Got to be careful now because Craig Forsyth is going to come to pit lane, and you saw Craig peel it off. He'll bring it down. Julian Altena will assume the lead here. I hear a lot of lifting coming out of that 20. You hear the same?
Yeah, it's trying to eke out every drop of fuel you have in there.
That's the name of the game, right? Stay on pit road the least amount of time, and good things will happen for you. Good run for Stephen Bruner, but him and Julian are going to come to pit lane, and Bruner, a really hot entry. He made up some time, but that was close. I thought he was going to lose it there coming back up onto the speedway.
Agreed. It's like, yes, you want to attack the pit entry and exit, but one mistake and it will really throw a wrench into your day.
Absolutely. That'll hand over the lead to Gary Lovern, and Gary is going to hit pit road, so the 29 machine is going to come in, and he'll get a full tank of is it now shell fuel and a new set of stones, and that's going to hand the lead over to our good friend Luis Gonzalez Nunez. LGN was one of the group that stopped and topped up the tanks. He was also involved in an accident, and that probably had more to do with it than anything else. But LGN right now is your leader. He is 38 laps out, as is Scott Schrader and Dylan Brannon in third, although they're going to come to pit lane now, at least LGN is. Got to be careful there, Luis. Don't speed now, brother. And we were talking about him earlier. Anybody that's been around these cars for a little bit in the sim knows the name Hugo Galez, and look who has snuck into third on the pit cycle. Ryan.
Yep, right there, and that's the name of the game. You might not be able to pass cars on track easily, but if you get on and off pit road quickly, you could jump a couple spots.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Hugo's going to peel off into pit lane, and that's going to hand the lead to Dylan Brannon, and we'll watch Dylan now. There are, as of now, if the caution was to fly, there are only 6 cars on the lead lap. Brandon Schrader have not stopped. Galez is on pit lane. Forsyth, Ward, and Altina were able to get back on the lead lap. They have stopped, and here comes Dylan Brannon. That's going to hand the lead right on over to Craig Forsyth, and that's just a shock to you, I'm sure, Ryan.
That Craig Forsyth would hang out for as long as he can on track.
And then assume the lead after a pit cycle by almost a second? That has never happened in the recorded history of iRacing Indy cars, ever, in a race.
Oh.
Actually, it's happened to me about 5 times this week. So, never happened. Craig Forsyth is one of the smartest, most intelligent, cagiest guys that you're ever going to run across. Super clean, super respectful, super awesome. But that's kind of his MO. He's gonna outthink you, and he has certainly outthought his opponents. Now Julian is in pretty good position because Julian Altina is a half a second behind Craig, and Josh Ward. Give a call down to Josh Ward. Not as experienced as. Certainly not as experienced as the front two, but he has managed to hang in the draft, and we're watching from the gyro cam of Josh Ward, and we're watching the gyro cam of Josh Ward. Those 3 have left Akash Rajesh in 4th. It's about a 3.5 second gap. So right now the battle is for the lead on the speedway among the front 3, and then you're going to have to go a long way back. Gary Lovern is following Akash Rajesh. Stephen Bruner and Nick Wheeler are back there. They've got a little pack going. Well, I should say Lovern and Bruner do. They've got a lapper there. Or Rajesh, Lovern, and Bruner. I thought they had a lapper with him. And then you've got another 3.5 seconds back to Nick Wheeler. Unfortunately for Nick, he is by himself, but help is on the way because Will Stearns and LGN are in hot pursuit, and they are coming. They are within the draft envelope, 1.2 seconds, and they're catching Nick Wheeler about 0.3 a lap here.
Yeah, I'm gonna make another comparison to the Tour de France, where generally you see this on breakaways, where a couple riders break off the front away from the rest of the group, and they sort of enter this form of competitive collaboration, where they know that if they work together, they could keep this lead and potentially make it all the way to the end, or in our case, the next fuel stop.
And that's very true. We saw that last night in the top split fixed broadcast. Adam Blocker and Jacob Oster combined iRating of about 17 million. Those two hooked up and pulled away from the field just by being smart, working together. They kind of played frenemies for about 47 to 50 laps. It got down to 2 and 3 to go. Adam Blocker threw the block, and the race was on. But for 47 laps, those two worked together, and they had gapped Marco Brazil before the first pit stop by about 4 seconds. And so that gives you an idea of what you can do if you stay in line and work together and use the slingshot draft effectively. You can't really slingshot here, though, can you, Ryan?
No, not really. The straightest straights we have here are not long enough to allow that. And in that scenario, you can play a couple games. You can try to save more fuel than the people in your group, which, if you're in a group with smart enough drivers, they'll realize what you're doing.
Absolutely. Speaking of smart enough drivers, you got Shane Coker, Mark Miller, Josh Cruz, Scott Schrader sneaking in your picture, Dylan Brannon, Mason Mitchum. 10th through 15th are all in pretty close contact here. And I'm going to kind of stay with that group a little bit because it's truthfully the only one that's really together. Julian and Craig are kind of, they're playing Julian and Craig games up at the front, and we could show that, but no danger of those two doing anything silly, at least not right around halfway. But we'll kind of continue to show guys through the field. There's Josh Cruz. Dylan Brannon, and Dylan's got a mess behind him. That's that's Schrader, Mitchum, Glover, and Juan Petrovich. Schrader and Mitchum there. They're all right together on the speedway. It just stinks. It's hard to get all of them in one shot. There's the 99 machine of James Waring. Again, 2 laps down the Yankees car. Go back to the lead here. It is changing hands rapidly. There's Josh Ward. He's decided he's had enough. He must be listening to us brag on Julian and Craig, because he's going to throw it to the bottom and try to drive around that 40 raceware machine and go to the top spot.
Oh, come on, guys, start collaborating.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The last thing you want to do if you're that group up front is this, which is race hard together. Because that's only going to allow Akesh Rajesh, Stephen Bruner, and Gary Lovern to catch you, because those guys are more or less, and we'll go back to them. Well, they're racing now. I was going to say they're more or less working together, but they were single file nose to tail for a while. Now they're racing hard. It's if you can get single file and the guys in front of you are racing, you can catch them in a big hurry. Unfortunately, the second group here really wants to go for that bottom for that 4th spot. Not really nose to tail.
Yeah, if I was in that second group, I would just hang out in third, save as much fuel as you can, because that's the only way you're catching the leaders, a shorter pit stop for a final.
You know, I'm surprised we haven't heard a radio transmission from Gary or Stephen Bruner. Bruner is plenty fast in these cars. Gary Lovern is a long time veteran, VOR, IES competitor. You would think that Gary might get on the horn and say, "Hey, fellas, listen up," but he hasn't done it, and so. You know, you wonder if maybe he's just content to ride and save some gas and try to beat these guys on pit road, maybe.
Yeah, I think that might be the plan. Just beat them heads up.
Yeah, you see Gary Lovern go to the inside of Stephen Bruner, and he'll take back 5th spot. Akesh Rajesh there right in front. How big are the runs here that you've experienced? Trey Shadid, my good friend, was very fond of saying, "If only I had a run when he was deep in a pack at Chicagoland." Because you feel like Superman, but then there would be nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's that time.
Ryan, did we lose you?
Have enough room to actually use the run.
Yeah, and we haven't seen it here, mainly because the race has only been slowed for that one caution. We'll go back to the lead. Craig Forsyth has now got some distance between himself, Julian Altena, and Josh Ward, and even a couple of lap cars. Now, Altena and Ward are going to catch him very quickly, and we'll go out the back of the gearbox. I mean, there they are. They haven't lost him. They're half a second back. They're going to catch him pretty quick. The draft envelope here, 1.7 seconds?
Yeah, 1.7 being absolutely no-toe.
Yeah, so they're going to catch him. They're well within that. They've cleared the lap traffic now, and there's Julian. So they're going to catch him. Just a matter of, I think they're probably up there racing too hard. Even for this stage, it's not yet time, is it?
Yeah, it's not yet time to really worry about the end. You're probably not hitting lap 70. If you're at lap 70, you're going to pit regardless. But it's that scenario where you just slowly work your way up. Be as far, get as close to Forsyth as you can before you pit. You don't have to worry about passing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Julian and Craig are going to be able to go as long as they did on the first run. Just because, they've been out leading now, and they've really gapped Josh Ward. Josh Ward now 1.5 seconds back. He's really having some struggles there in traffic in that Conor Daly United States Air Force silver machine. It's a good looking car. But they designed that thing to look like an A10, right? Is that the?
Yeah, with the shark nose.
See, I don't even think I'm too much of a history buff. I don't even think A10 when I see that mouth. I think P40.
Exactly.
I think give me back the propellers and the 50 millimeter Brown and the 50 caliber Browning None of this 30 millimeter cannon that happens to have an airframe on the back of it.
Yeah, because probably of the Air Force liveries that daily ran, probably my favorite was probably the Bell X1, the Jaeger X1.
And that's a good call out. Chuck Yeager actually did pace the Indianapolis 500 at one point in his lifetime. I believe it was sometime in the late 80s. I'd have to look it up. But that does ring a bell that he had driven the pace car. General Chuck Yeager, of course, the first man over the speed of sound. Great friend to motor racing in general, or really anything that goes fast. But yeah, good call out on the X1. I actually would love to see him. There's a fantasy livery of it out there somewhere. It pops up occasionally. Our family, of course, has a place in Pensacola, Florida. I would love to see a Blue Angels car. I think that would look absolutely tremendous.
That'd be awesome.
It would. Now, Julian Altina has forged a 1.2 second lead over Craig Forsyth. That tells me that Craig is saving gas.
Yeah, you're thinking about shortening up that last stop as much as you can.
Absolutely. And, you also don't know. I mean, traffic is going to play a part in all of this. You don't know. Craig and Julian, both, of course, extremely intelligent. Green flag stops have begun. Shane Coker and Nick Wheeler have already been on pit road as we follow the leaders. That's Forsyth and Altina, P1 and P2. But Craig and Julian, smart enough to kind of know what the deal is. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if Craig hadn't leaned that baby out just a little bit, thinking, I might like to make my last stop just as short as I can. Try to hit that 11 gallons as close as possible, and the caution is out. Nobody falling through the order on my screen.
Did see a car stopped in between 1 and 2. Let me see if I can find it.
I'm paging through it. That's Rob Nickel. That is Rob Nickel, and let's see what has happened to Rob. That is, of course, the Team Scandia machine.
Oh, it seems like Rob just clipped the apron.
Yeah, apron bad. And that's one of those things that I'm going to chalk that up to experience, Ryan. As you know, you can use the apron here. It is usable under green flag conditions. We do use it on occasion. However, and there's a yeah but, and the yeah but is you've got to adjust your weight jacker before you hit that thing.
Yeah, you got to adjust your weight jacker, and you also can't do what Rob did. You can't ride it. If you're going to move up and down off the apron, it has to be a very decisive move.
Yeah, you almost got to hit it hit it right about where the grass starts, ride it around, and then get yourself back up. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, 11 degrees, but that really does upset these cars. And they're so aero dependent that if you hit it wrong and you lose the downforce, you are in bad trouble. And that's what happened to Rob Nickel, a tough break for him. Caution flag, pit stops underway, wholesale action on pit road. Everybody wants new Firestones. Everybody wants some gas. Julian Altina beats him off pit road, followed by Craig Forsyth and Josh Ward. Akash Rajesh is 4th. Gary Lovren 5th. And how about our man Will Stearns? He's moved up to 6th.
We are going to have a showdown here at the end.
We are going to have a showdown. There's a lot of experience up there. And speaking of experience, Luis Gonzalez Nunez. It wasn't, but at the beginning of this race, we were looking at half of the front of LGN's P1 broadcasting machine. Of course, Luis, one of Gary Godso, our proprietor and founder's longtime broadcast partners. LGN was missing the right front of that car not more than half an hour ago, and here he is running 7th. How about that?
Very impressive drive. It's, especially today with not many cautions, you had to move up to the front on ability.
That's absolutely right. And speaking of Gary, we do wish him all the best. Gary Godso, of course, at home recovering after a medical event over the weekend. And so, Gary, we hope you're watching. We hope you're feeling good. Stay well, get rested up, get healed up, and we'll see you soon. Meanwhile, here at Chicagoland, 73 laps complete. We are under caution. Julian Altina leads it from Craig Forsyth, Josh Ward, Akash Rajesh, and Gary Lovern. Will Stearns is 6th, Luis Gonzalez Nunez 7th, Stephen Bruner 8th, Dylan Brannen 9th, and Mark Miller will round out your top 10. Scott Schrader is 11th, Mason Mitchin 12th, Josh Cruz is 13th, Hugo Gallas 14th, Nick Wheeler 15th, Baron Glover is 16th, Greg Robinson 17th, Armand Juan Petrovich is 18th, John Napier is 19th, Shane Coker is 20th, James Waring is 21st, Rob Nickel has withdrawn. He has scored 22nd. He will finish 23rd. Turner Johnson 23rd. Will assume 22nd. And Dan Adams is 29 laps in arrears out of the race. Shotgun on the field. He will be 24th. There are 16 machines on the lead lap. Robinson, Juan Petrovich, Napier, Coker, and Waring are all 1 lap down. And Turner Johnson is 4 laps in arrears. And I think that is Turner Johnson. Is that Turner Johnson or is that the 90? That's Baron Glover. Baron Glover and Nick Wheeler are going to get the wave around here. So under IndyCar rules, if you stay out and the leader pits, you get to go right back by him. You get to go right back around the field and get your lap back. And so that's what's been done by Nick Wheeler and Baron Glover. They also had recently stopped, so they are good on fuel. 7 laps for Wheeler, 4 laps for Glover. All of Glover's are going to be under caution. Would like to shout out everybody who is watching us. NMPS says hello. Well, hello back to you. We agree, Ray. IndyCar is the best. And Andy Coker, he'd like to say hi, Shane. He finally made it. And so thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We do have quite a few concurrent viewers watching us, and if you are watching, go ahead and hit that like button, ring the bell, and subscribe to the channel. We definitely appreciate that. Anything to help with the YouTube algorithm is greatly appreciated. We are getting set for what promises to be a wild 25-lap shootout.
Green, green, green.
Green flag out, and there was some action there in the middle of the field. It looked like several cars did not quite get going. That's going to allow Julian Altena and Craig Forsyth to kind of break away. And meanwhile, back in that pack, the action is right around Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Josh Ward. That's Will Stearns up there. He's going to 4th, and Akash Rajesh back to 6th.
Yeah, Josh Ward's coming down pit lane. I assume he has to serve a penalty.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that was a penalty for some of that action on the start. Let's watch Josh here. He is 3rd, coming to the line, and let's see what happens to Josh Ward. I just don't think he went.
Yeah, him and Lovren just both sunk like rocks.
Yeah, they didn't go, and they're trying not to pass each other before the line, and that's a tough break for Josh Ward, last week's winner. But he has now exited pit lane, and he will go 1 lap down. Josh Ward is going to go back to 16th spot. Meanwhile, the action is at the front. Julian Altena all over the rear of Craig Forsyth, and you've got Will Stearns coming in 3rd, and the veterans are starting to come to the top.
Yeah, they're going to have to quickly sort themselves out and chase down Forsyth and Altuna.
Yeah, it's one of those two. Even if you get there, I don't know if you're going to be able to do anything. 25 laps isn't really enough to wear out the tires, and this was going to be my thought coming to the final stint. Whoever has the lead here, in my estimation, Ryan, and feel free to agree or disagree, Craig Forsyth is going to do everything to that white line up to and including probably buy it a sandwich.
Yes, he's going to cover that white line in rough. Julian's going to have to take the long way around no matter what he does. Everyone else, good luck.
You know, and to be fair, you can make the pass here. Ed Carpenter famously did that to Dario Franchitti. Sat behind Dario lap after lap after lap after lap, and then at the very end popped out, and he was able to nip him at the line. But you've got to build that run just right, and it cannot be done from the very top. You're going to have to absolutely time that perfect. put just enough of your left front wing on the right rear tire of that car in front to kind of stall him out a little bit and see if you can't surge ahead at the line. That's why a lot of the finishes here are so close, because that's about the only way you can win it from second.
This is gonna seemingly hang side by side, but he's up. Oh. Yeah, the over-under move sometimes works.
Yeah, but that's gonna
only if Craig doesn't see it coming.
That's gonna require a mistake from the driver of the 27, and as I've learned, those mistakes are not usually forthcoming.
Oh, you are absolutely correct about that.
Craig Forsyth is a Lionheart winner. That's a veteran of the wars. He is not going to mess up very often. He does, but it's not very often, and Julian knows that. Craig, Julian, and I, of course, race together in the VOR IndyCar series, which is contested on Saturdays in the mid-afternoon, broadcasted by Gary, and we have a good time. It's a very collegial series. Everybody who runs it is pretty much friends, but these two know each other well.
All right, man, caution
We
is
got
out.
caution on the
is out.
speedway.
Must be further back in the field.
James Waring in the 99 has come to rest at the outside of the turn turn 4 against the retaining wall, and let's kind of look and see what happens. He's weaving around it. Almost looks like his wheel shut off going down the backstretch. He just drives straight into the wall there, almost like he didn't have steering. Comes back down the track and right into the path of poor Turner Johnson, and Turner he's going to get his second whack of the day, and you want to see what he sees. This is half speed and it's scary. Just
Yeah, when you drive these cars on a 1.5-mile oval, your reactions need to be quick, because when things happen, they happen fast, and generally, once they do, you don't really have much time to react.
Well, and even if you do have time to react, the other thing is, and we're not going to see anybody come to pit road here, at least in the front. You may have some takers in the back. Nobody in that front 5, they are certainly all veterans of this car, is going to hit pit road. Mason Mitchum, Scott Schrader, they're going to come and take new tires, as is John Napier. But you're not going to see these guys come to pit road. The time for pitting is done. Of course, though, if you're in the back like Wheeler or Mitchum, why not, right? You've got a set sitting on the wall. They're not going to refund you the money. You might as well put them on the car.
That is true. If you think the fresh rubber is worth it, even after, 16, 15 laps, go for it.
Don't necessarily know maybe worth it or not is the case, is the thing more of along the lines of my thought process. It's not going to make any faster here, but it might make the car more drivable. So, if I'm trying to cut through a pack, why not? Why not? Now, you hear people out there burning fuel. Fuel is weight bad, and so they're going to try to burn as much of it under caution as they can, and you do that by pressing in on the clutch or pulling in the clutch, depending on your arrangement. If you're me, you're leading a top split night race at Kansas, and you drop the clutch too early, spin the car out in front of Pablo Diaz-Francis in front of a few hundred people, and you quit doing that.
That is certainly the case, because look, I know they patched it in over the recent year where you do get a certain level of reduced power due to heat buildup in the engine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it conservatively, you can still burn fuel without losing a noticeable amount of power.
Yeah, and speaking of patches, we just did have a pretty big one come out for the IR18. They have removed the ability to adjust the anti-roll bars in the corners. I didn't know if you had seen that or not, Ryan, but they have removed our ability to change the anti-roll bars in the corners, and I have knowledge of why that is, but tell a viewer why that might be important even here.
Well, generally you use the roll bar to kind of get a better feel, so you can make the car tighter or looser on balance on corner entry and exit based on the settings. Now, if they banned you from changing it in the corners, you could sort of, if you're quick enough and you really want to micromanage the car, you could effectively change the driving characteristics of the car mid-corner.
Yeah, and so what was happening was at the very highest levels of, it's more on the GTP side than the IndyCar side. You don't hear it as much on our cars, but guys at the very highest levels of those cars were running scripts to change the roll bars mid-corner. Now, in real life, you can't adjust the roll bar while it's under load, so you can't adjust it except on the straights. And so iRacing has just patched that so that it's taken away the ability really to run scripts to change the roll bars mid-corner, which it was kind of a ersatz is the German word version of active suspension, and that has now been taken away. Meanwhile, we're getting ready to come back to green. Lights are out on the pace car. The big number that jumps out to me, 88 laps on the board, and so we are going to have lappers mixed in with the front of the field here when we get down to come back to green.
Yeah, but it's pretty much going to make things a bit difficult for the people caught behind them. Just not because the lap cars are going to be in the way, but it's more distance to cover.
Green flag, green flag.
It is more distance to cover. The race is back underway. Green flag is out, and we're going to follow them around here from the speed shots.
Side by side.
So obviously Craig's got the upper hand here. He's got the inside, and he is about ready to buy the white line dinner. But if you're, where would you want to be if you're Altina, Stearns, or Luis Gonzalez Nunez, or even Gary Lovern? What are you going to do to put yourself in position to win the race here in these final 10 laps, Ryan?
I try to go for an over-under run, because as much as Craig's gonna hug that bottom line, you can't really hug the line on corner exit. Just, he's gonna have to arc out even a small amount. And if you run down the banking in 4 or in 2, you have the chance of sticking it down the inside. But the only problem with that, to give yourself that room, you also leave yourself open to the cars behind.
Yeah, and so, you know, I'm kind of thinking about this, and we're going to go on board. We're going to go on board Gary Lovern here, just to kind of illustrate what I'm thinking about. If I'm Gary Lovern and I'm sitting here, I am going to try to follow in Julian and Craig. My goodness, close. I'm going to do exactly what Gary's going to do. I'm going to get right up the tailpipe of that 27, because it's going to force Julian down to guard against it. And you might be able to sneak through Julian that way. The problem is, and you just saw it, you get too close and you don't have your tools right, and that baby is going to push like a dump truck going through turns 3 and 4. Gary Lovern nearly loses the draft with that maneuver. I'll tell you who hasn't lost the draft there. That is Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's going to blow by Stearns for 3rd, and he's going to start working on the back end of Julian now.
Yeah, he went up to Craig's attenuator, realized he was boxed in, and he let off the gas and just eased himself out of there.
I can hear Trace right now, Ryan. If only I had a run. Lamentable, right? The other word for Marco Aurelio Brazil. Lamentable indeed. Such a massive run, and you could almost You could almost see the grimace from LGN standing on the brakes, knowing that he had the slingshot move made and just know where to go with it.
I think he's going to go for it again.
Yeah, well, what you got to do with that is you've got to try to build up enough momentum to at least clear one of those three cars. They're stacked up like a wall in front of you, and it's important to get by them because heaven knows if you can't get to the lead, you at least want clean air, and that's the huge advantage that Will Stearns has. It's not that he's necessarily going anywhere. It's that he's keeping clean air on the front of that car. That's keeping the cars behind him bottled up, but it's also saving his stuff for any sort of move that he might want to make in these last 4 laps, 3.5 laps now.
Yeah, because especially with them effectively 3 wide across the front, they're throwing up a wall of dirty air.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. LGN had a little bit of clean air earlier. He was right up against the outside retaining wall. You could have stuck a sheet of paper between the 14 and the safer barrier not more than a couple of laps ago, and he's just not quite. There he goes. There he goes. He's up to the tall side. Just can't quite get there. We're going to go. We're going to go from the drone. I'm going to try to catch it so that we can see the next lap by from the start-finish line. Just to kind of let fans know what we're looking at as we come back around. We're going to get the white flag one more time. Craig Forsyth, Julian Altena, Will Stearns for the win here at Chicago. And I hit the wrong button, of course, trying to be cute. Craig's
side by side.
Oh, we're going to crash.
No!
No caution. Stand on the gas. Will Stearns off of turn number 4. The number 306 is going to be the winner. And I'm sorry, I'm going to break the broadcaster's wall. Will Stearns has been a longtime friend of mine, and it is awesome to see him go to victory lane. A tough break for Craig, Julian, and Luis, but I couldn't be happier to see Will Stearns win this race. Well done.
Wow.
And so we got to talk about it. We've got to show it. Julian has made his way back to his pit stall, but we don't want to see a broken 11. We want to see how it got broke. So tell us what you see. We're going across the line. We've got the white. Julian is outside of Craig, and just what do you see here, Ryan?
Yeah, once the white flag's in the air, it's no holds bar. You know you have to use every inch of racetrack you got. And effectively, both of them were just running so close. A bit of net code was involved. They touch, and they swing into the outside wall. Unfortunately, they also swing in front of LGN, and he goes flying to the catch fence.
I'm surprised Julian's car actually made it back around. That thing was face first into the catch fence. Both of the fronts on the 11 broken. He persevered. Let's have a look at what Will Stearns saw, because this is going to be a wild look at this accident. Let's get the pylon out of there so you can see it all. This is Will Stearns' winning moment. It's Craig and Julian on the bottom. He's going to get hooked up with, they're going to get hooked up together, and somehow he slides it to the left and around the two wrecked machines, and Will Stearns is going to take it to victory lane tonight in the Chicagoland 150.
Actually, listening to it back, I don't even think Will lifted. He just held his foot flat as he swiped in front of him.
Yeah, and that's something I was going to say earlier. In these cars, you don't lift, because if you lift while you're turning, it changes the center of pressure. And you change the center of pressure. We're going to watch Will Stearns celebrate in just a minute. But you change the center of pressure, and you're going to go for a wild ride no matter what you do. So that's kind of why you don't really have a choice. You have to stand on it. I don't think Will wants to come off the track, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't go home either.
So tonight from Chicagoland, your winner, Will Stearns, he led one lap and one lap only, but it was the most important lap. He made up 20 spots. He started 20th, or 19 spots rather. Stephen Bruner comes home second. He did not lead a lap, nor did Nick Wheeler, although he did have the purple lap, the fast lap. Nick made up 10 spots. Not quite the hard charger, but a great run for him to round out the podium. Akesh Rajesh is fourth, Josh Ward fifth, Gary Lovern sixth, Dylan Brannon, great run to seventh, Scott Schrader eighth, Josh Cruz ninth, and Mark Miller will round out your top 10. Baron Glover is 11th after starting P3. Craig Forsyth is going to come home 12th. Tough break for him at the end. Mason Mitchum is 13th. Julian Altena, likewise, tough break to be involved in that accident. 14th. Same for Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 15th. They looked like a sure 1-2-3 coming for the line. Armand Juan Petrovich is 16th. Shane Coker 17th. Greg Robinson 18th. John Napier 19th. Hugo Gallas will round out your top 21 lap in arrears. 21st tonight from the Chicagoland 150, James Waring 22nd. Turner Johnson, Rob Nickel 23rd, and 24th and last, Dan Adams, 57 laps and retired. I bet we're going to have a happy bunch in this. We're going to have a happy bunch in this replay booth. If we can find them.
Well, let's see. Wheeler and Brunner are waiting for us.
They are indeed. I'm trying to get the replay stuff queued up because, you know, we'd like to be able to show it. For whatever reason, we're not cooperating. There we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring up our third place finisher. That's going to be Nick Wheeler. Nick, this is Mark Murphy, Ryan Eric King, the wreck in the P1 broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yes, I do.
How about that run to third, man? We didn't hardly say much about you all day, and you come home on the bottom step of the podium. So our fault for not covering the third fastest man in Chicagoland tonight. Tell us about your race, man. How'd it go?
Yeah. Well, the end there is really what the race was. I got my nose chopped off by poor Dan, who was dealing with connection issues. So when he tried to get out of the way, he actually got in my way, and it put me back a little bit. And then it let me get fresh tires with 15 to go because I only had one position to lose. So once I had the fresh tires on, I think I restarted 13th, and I was passing around the outside for 8 straight laps until I got to the back of Steve and just sat there and waited for the wreck to happen.
Yeah, the baby run's pretty good with the new pair of shoes. Ryan, what do you have for the bottom step of the podium today?
Yeah, what was kind of your thought process, your strategy heading into this one? Did you expect a pack race? Did you know that things were going to thin out? Were you worried about fuel?
Well, I wasn't worried about fuel. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm on the testing team with Shane, so I had a good chunk of insight into how this thing was going to run. I expected the top guys to kind of pack up in the top, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is what we saw in the first long run, and then the field to kind of spread out behind them. But that finish was not what I wasn't expecting. Big a 4 wide finish type of thing going on there, going into 3 at the end.
Thanks. Pretty much like I don't think anyone could have predicted that final lap.
No, including the 3 Massachusetts guys on the podium. We were all just sitting there waiting.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, Nick, great run tonight. Just a wonderful, wonderful finish for you. You got any friends, family, sponsors, teammates you'd like to shout out to this evening? Floor is yours.
Yeah, shout out to Royalty Motorsports and SM Box for sponsoring the car. And my family is watching They watch every week, so shout out to them. And big shout out to the mass guys for keeping it clean at the end there. It's it's not normal to have 3 mass holes finish back to back to back without wrecking each other.
Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate you coming into the booth. It's awesome to see you in this league. We've seen you around the top split a few times on Tuesday nights, and so awesome to get to talk to you in one of these settings, Nick. Keep coming back, keep going fast, keep having fun, my friend, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Mark.
More than welcome. So that is Nick Wheeler. He is third today. Second place is gonna be Steven Bruner, and we're gonna get Steven pulled up here. Steven Bruner, Mark Murphy, Ryan Eric King in the P1 broadcasting booth. You got a copy?
Yep, tenfold.
Very good. Well, I kind of told Nick this. I feel bad in a way because we didn't really kind of call your guys' names all day, and here you are on the podium. Kind of walk us through your day a little bit. You did not stop and take tires as Nick did under the caution that led to the 12-lap shootout. But kind of walk us through your day. Tell us how it went and how you got to where you were.
Yeah, sure. We qualified in the middle of the top 10, so, decent start, and just kind of ran around in that spot for most of the time. Kind of got up to 5th, 4th through the first pit cycle, and then was running there, I think, like, between 4th and 6th, guys were, 4 seconds, 3 seconds up the road there before the caution there. So, again, sort of just came out in that general vicinity, in the middle of the top 10, and just sort of picked off a couple guys and then got lucky when the top 3 crashed there. So went from 5th to 2nd sort of there in the last lap. So
Gotcha. Ryan, what have you got for the second place finisher today?
Well, not to repeat myself, but it seemed like it seemed like fuel strategy was going to be the name of the game today, but then that late caution flipped the script. What was your mindset before that last caution came out?
Yeah, I mean, I had stopped with, most of the field there. We all kind of went off one by one as the fuel went away there. So, truthfully, with the tank kind of at 35 to 40 laps, you could run pretty full out there. So I was just trying to kind of split it in thirds. As that caution flew, I was starting to think like, hey, maybe try for an undercut here. Tires did seem to work, matter a little bit, maybe a little clean air, but obviously with 30 to go, just kind of come in. And then the one with 12 to go, I feel like I was just, P5, P6, far enough up the field that the track position was probably more important. But, obviously with Nick kind of coming up from, I think, like 13th or so, maybe not as important as I had thought, but worked out in the end.
It definitely did.
And Steven, congratulations on your run. I didn't know there were this many IndyCar fans in Massachusetts, so it's awesome to see it's awesome to see 3 of you on the podium. You got any friends, family, sponsors, anybody that you'd like to shout out this evening? The floor is yours, my man.
Not really. Just like I said, it was a good run. Happy with the finish especially after last week where I got collected in the middle of the race and only finished about half of it. So happy with the finish and excited for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the booth, Steven. Definitely look forward to seeing you. Up here a little bit more in the future. A fine run to P2. Keep going fast and having fun, my friend, and we will see you next week.
Take it easy, guys.
Absolutely. We're going to give Will a few seconds here. I am furiously texting him across several different platforms, trying to get Will into the waiting room. I don't know that he's ever done an interview before in one of these, Ryan. So trying to get him to come on up here, Will Stearns, to collect the spoils. But while we see if we can't get Will up here, you have any final thoughts on the race today?
I was a bit worried for most of the race. Once things started to spread out that we weren't going to get that trademark, you know, close finish that we're used to at Chicagoland. But that last caution really created the environment to get that. We didn't get quite a photo finish, but it definitely went down to the last lap, and it was tremendous to commentate, incredible to watch. I immediately want to do it again.
Yeah, this is something that I have to say has been absolutely awesome about this series. It's a really awesome bunch. 24 cars in this race, by the way, on a Wednesday night is a tremendous turnout. And so all the credit goes to Shane Coker. Shane, by the way, wanted everybody to know, and I didn't get a chance to mention it during the race, but Shane wanted everybody to know you do get, there is a random $50 drawing, at least one, for anybody that participates in 5 of the 7 races. You don't even have to, all you got to do is take the start. So there are 5 races left. So anybody out there that would like to compete in the remainder of these races, you are more than welcome to message Shane Coker, Discord. If you want to contact me, anybody at P1, we'd be more than happy to give you the links and get you all set up. This series does run at 8:15 every Wednesday night through the 3rd Wednesday or 4th. Well, it'd be the 4th Wednesday in October, but through that part of the month. So if you want to race some Indy cars, get in touch with Shane, and I'm sure he would be absolutely happy to get you fixed up. As for me, I love the racing. It's awesome to see Chicagoland go green. Usually when the fixed cars are here, it's a 75 lapper, and it will always, without fail, have at least one caution. And so absolutely awesome to see that, and really just thankful that we're able to be doing this. Shout out to Shane and everybody at the NASR and Votive Racing League for having Ryan and I along. Congratulations to Will Stearns. He never did make it into the waiting room, and so we'll have to see if we can't get up here and talk to him. But Will interacts with me quite a bit on Facebook, and I will absolutely congratulate him there. We'll see if we can't get an interview from him. Further along on the P1 Broadcasting Network right now, we do have the VRL Truck Series airing, and that is at Watkins Glen. Upcoming on the network on Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, you'll be able to see the end of the Dark Horse 2,000-mile summer ride. And so Mark the Watchman, has sponsored 4 500-mile races. This is going to be the 4th one, and it is at the Old Scan of Indianapolis in the DW12. So tune it in for that. That's 7 o'clock Sunday night. Monday, I will have the NTRL Pro Spec Xfinity Series from right here at Chicagoland at 8:15, and then at 9:45, Gary Godso is going to have the ISRA Truck Series. Tuesday night, 8:15, we'll have the flagship broadcast. That is the IndyCar Oval Fixed Series Top Split. Hopefully, I will get to be back in the car for that, although that is pending Gary. And then next Wednesday night, 1 week from today, 7:50 we go live, 8 o'clock or 8:15 start for the NASR Votive IndyCar Series from Texas. For Ryan Eric King, I am Mark Murphy saying so long, good night. Thank you to all of our first responders, military, police, fire, paramedics, EMS, all the people that keep us safe while we sleep at night. Thank you, Godspeed, and God bless. Keep going fast and having fun, my friends, and we will catch you later.
Yep. Get well soon, Gary.